come.
Byron, our director, saying, are you guys ready? Yeah, sure, we're ready. Does Grant know we're ready? Now we're all ready. Sunrise Extra on a Friday morning. Look who's joining us, Tim
I had to get a little
Gordon.
coffee for this extra gig.
Now I know we have Byron Minger, our director today for Sunrise Extra. He likes to get this show on quickly.
Get it going.
So right now I'm still trying to pull up our Facebook feed so I can follow along with some of the comments that you all are making on our show this morning. But we're talking about a topic that came up today, Tim, on the Sunrise TV program. This idea of how young should your kids be when you start to leave them home alone for the first time. And the choices we gave our viewers this morning were basically two. Would you say that between 10 and 12 is old enough for a child to stay home alone, or should it be 12 and over? And actually, the majority of our viewers on the Sunrise show this morning weighed in saying 10 to 12 was appropriate. I think it was 50,
a little young.
Yeah, I thought so too. 58% of our viewers, at least about 20 minutes ago, said that 10 to 12 was an appropriate age for kids to be home alone. 42% of our viewers at that time said no, they should be at least 12, if not older, to stay home alone. You've got the older kids in the room here, Tim. So do you remember when you first let them home?
I was thinking about that. I've been thinking about this, and I think we were closer to 12. I think we were closer to 12 years old. You know, we might have done a little bit earlier. Now I've got one girl in college, young woman in college. I could really talk.
She'll probably always be a girl to you.
She will. My older girl, first year in college. Another one who's a junior in high school, so pretty close together in age, 14 months apart. I think Grace was probably 12, close to. I think we went with about 12. And felt pretty comfortable with that. You know, good, safe house, lock the doors. I think it has a lot to do with, how responsible you feel your kids are.
Absolutely. It's a case-by-case basis,
alert they are, attentive.
Right now, Tim, I will tell you that, obviously the show is a little different today. We have no Nina. She's off. Brenda is talking right now to our Today Show friends.
Excellent.
She's doing some conversations with them that will air next week on our Sunrise show. I'm trying to use this piece of equipment to pull up our thank you. You've got the comments.
I got it.
Because my phone is being used right now. For those of you watching on Instagram, we have a producer, Jess, who is literally holding my phone right now in place for the next X number of minutes so that you can see and hear this feed cleanly on Instagram. So good morning to everyone on Instagram, Facebook, on our .com stream. People are chiming in about this topic. What do you got for us, Tim?
All right. Well, we've got Stanford Walker saying responsibilities and trust start around 8-ish, and 13 the test starts.
Stanford is a constant contributor to this live stream, so we say good morning, Stanford Walker. I know you love watching us here. Chris McGinnis.
A big fan
good. Chris is here too. Your kid is definitely too young to be left home alone.
I don't leave our kid alone in a freaking room by himself for more than 30 seconds. He's 2 and he is 2.5 at this point almost, and he is really mischievous. So he's got a little, but he's really he's into learning. And we're already into giving them tasks and stuff, and so I'm hoping that little bit of coaching, we keep doing that, and hopefully we can nourish that into making a responsible young adult out of him at some point. So that we can leave him alone.
Well, it is case by case.
How does that work?
Well, I was going to ask you, Tim, because you have girls and boys. You've raised both genders. So I'm wondering, were you more comfortable leaving the girl home?
2 girls.
I got 2 girls, buddy.
I thought you had a boy.
No, Grace and Abby. Silly you, really?
I have the boys.
You have the boys. That's what I know. That's what I know.
So you've got the girls.
What lack of sleep does for you.
You've got the girls. I've got the boys. I thought to myself, sometimes the girls in their classroom, even because I've been in there volunteering enough time to recognize, like, those girls seem like they're more mature than the boys in all kinds of ways. I don't feel comfortable leaving my 2 home alone together for very long.
How old now?
12. Yeah. I would feel comfortable leaving either one of them home alone by themselves, actually, more so than together, because that's where trouble ensues. That's where things happen. And all I can think about is, man, sometimes they get in some vicious fights when I'm there. And I feel like, man, it's a good thing I was here to break this up. If I'm not there, how far will it go? How far will those fights go?
Yeah, have the advantage of having an older boy and a younger boy. They're twins, so they're right at it. We have twin cats and they're boys, and they go crazy. I mean, they're rolling around, chasing each other, so I know what you're talking about.
But were the girls different at all? Like, was one more mature at 12, say, like where you felt more comfortable than the other, or are they both about the same?
I think our older girl, Grace, and no offense to Abby, she's wonderful, but Grace was kind of our leader, and I think so by virtue of being first and older, she's probably, a little bit more responsible at the age that she, at 12, than Abby was. they're both, highly.
And the age difference there again.
Abby just unfriended Tim on Facebook.
Yeah, sorry, Abby. God, I lost
But
her.
Abby
Okay.
always had her sister to look up to, and she probably felt like, oh, my sister will always be there to take care of me.
Absolutely.
So she,
yeah.
whereas your older kid is always going to have to feel like, man, I better be responsible here. There's no one above me.
Yeah,
This is all new to me. We've got another one on the way actually in December, so we're gonna have a little age separation there, and we'll see how that goes. But
Boy or girl?
Girl, yeah, baby
fun.
girl due actually in about 5 weeks. So things.
Want a
are
couple
getting
comments
sure.
here? All right, we got a couple hundred people watching and talking to us right now. Robin Ponder says 10 years old, depends upon the child, says Valerie. Eric Tucker says my son is 11, but he has 3 older sisters who have learned what maturity is, so I have no problem leaving him alone to run the show at 11 because he had good sisters teaching him how to deal with that.
Lead the way, yeah.
Yeah. Jeff Lucas says Tim came to my house before.
That's the gentleman in West Lynn. We had that big storm, and you were in his front yard.
Oh, that's right, Jeff.
A few months back.
Nice man.
I want to say, even the threat of a tornado that morning in Washington and Clackamas County.
Well, his daughter was, I believe, Jeff, his daughter was home alone when that thing hit.
Is that right?
Yeah, and so, and I forget her age, but I think she was upper.
Oh, now I remember that story. Yeah,
upper
because
high
you
school.
interviewed her.
Yeah. So she was definitely old enough to be home alone, but it freaked her out, and she called the parents, and they came home after that. But that's pretty interesting. Hey, Jeff, how you doing? Nice
I remember
for watching.
Tim coming back to work that day and saying, man, that Jeff guy has a beautiful home.
Yeah, beautiful home. Yeah, I did say that. Except all the branches and trees all over it and everything.
It's been redecorated.
So there's an update right now. I'm looking past our camera. I can see what you all see on your screen right now. An update to our poll. So the question again, we asked, what age is appropriate to leave kids home alone? And still the majority, as you and Chris and Tim can see, 56% of you saying 10 to 12 years of age is completely appropriate. 44% saying, nope, they need to be over 12, at least 13 years old.
Did we put a time limit on that? Like, is there like is it?
Yeah, we did not put a time limit on that. I think
oh.
because we don't have enough space on the screen for a time limit.
Like, I'm wondering, there's a coffee shop across the street from my house.
Sure.
Can I leave my 8-year-old son there for 5 minutes while I go do that? Like, I mean, obviously this is a by feel thing, right?
I'll tell you a couple of stories, but I think the first test, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know what it was like in your house, the first test is, you know what, it's a Sunday afternoon, broad daylight, I need to run to the grocery store, I know it's going to be probably 45 minutes, at most an hour round trip. My kids are 12. Can they handle that hour by themselves? That seemed pretty safe to me. But at the same time, the fact of the matter is this. Every time you leave your house and no one's home, you come back in, there's always a threat that someone could be in your home, right?
Yeah.
I mean, break-ins happen. We see about it on the news all the time. And I do get nervous about the idea of, my kid being the one entering that house.
Oh, yeah.
Versus
I didn't
me
think
being the
of
one.
that.
Maybe they're at they go to the park with their friends and say, okay, while you go to the park, I'm running to the store. If you need to come home, fine. I won't be here. Just, be good. But then I'm thinking, geez, that, I can't protect them if something were to go wrong there.
That one thing never changes no matter how old they are.
Yeah.
You never stop being concerned about them and worrying a little bit if they're home alone
sometimes
or
you have
gone
to
off
step
the
Oh man,
road,
you mean we
whatever
signed
else.
up for life here?
Yeah,
for
for
this
life.
thing?
It's for life.
But I will tell you one time now, how old should a child be? Here's the scenario. Maybe I was being a bad dad here, and you can tell me if I was.
Bad dad. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
It was Valentine's. It was the day before Valentine's Day. I hadn't gotten my wife something for Valentine's Day. So I run to
So
this.
you were either a bad husband or a bad dad.
Yeah, right. I knew I was a bad husband, but was I a bad dad? I go to this local nail salon where you can get like manicures, pedicures, and that sort of thing. So I got her like this foot massage pedicure thing for Valentine's Day. Literally, the salon is sitting in a strip of stores. The parking was right out front, so I can see my car from the shop. Boys are with me. I said, you don't have to come in here while I do this. And they were at the time, I'm going to say 11. So it was just about a year and a half ago. They're 11 years old in the back seat of the car. I run in and I'm buying the gift certificate. I'm talking to the woman. Yeah, my eyes were not on the car the whole time. I'm having an exchange.
Crack the windows,
but
lock
listen,
the
the
doors.
windows were cracked.
Yeah.
Two women walk by apparently. Now I'm not seeing this. They walk by and they stop and they said, I can't believe, like my boys are telling me this
geez.
later. I can't believe those two boys are in there by themselves. And I didn't hear this because I was in the store. When I came out, I did see them there, and they were a few feet from my car, and they gave me a look like I stink, and I didn't know why they were looking at me like that. So I get in the car and I'm like, Dad, you shouldn't have left us in here. I go, why? What happened?
What do you guys think? Weigh in
And
on
they said
this
those two women over there were talking and saying that we shouldn't be in the car by ourselves.
Yeah, I wonder about
Reasonability.
that one too. Like, what's the what's the reasonability and reasonable age to do that? And then, but then you got the same situation. You're
know,
worried
I
about
think
somebody coming in and taking your kid. Or I don't know.
If it's for
There's
a couple
always-
of minutes, it's reasonable. Come on, if you've got line of sight, I mean, all the variables.
Right.
I think.
And
you
they're
know,
11.
Yeah, they're 11. For goodness' sake.
But you know what? They do look young. So maybe they look and go, those kids look 8. I had no
Yeah.
idea how old they
Yeah.
thought my kids were, but apparently they thought they were too
I
young to
don't
be
know how
sitting
long
in the
they've
car.
been in there alone and where you were.
And
but,
you know what? There's
yeah.
also some very judgmental people in this world too.
True.
Yes, there are. Let's see if any of them are on here.
now?
Yeah,
Let's
let's
see
see.
what's-
Who's judging?
Great
Come on, Judge
comments,
Drew.
too. There's almost 70 comments on a post that went right before.
I can't dial up the KGW deal on my on
do
this
you got,
iPad. So
Celeste?
if I can borrow your phone, thank
Executive
you.
producer Celeste Ruiz, thank
The
you
brains
very much.
behind
Hey,
the
Celeste.
organization
The
here.
best.
One of our lights just went out. Can you fix that problem?
Yeah,
well,
come
literally,
on.
one of them just went out. That's a
lost a light.
Yes.
Oh,
Grant's on it.
going to jump on it.
We have a guy
Hang
named
on, we
Grant
got
who is
dead
literally monitoring this camera right now that you're looking at, and with
coming
his
in
other
close.
hand, he's fixing a light. Apparently, the bulb is
Yeah, I
dead.
don't
Why
think
don't,
it's
why
gonna-
don't I do that? Here,
Okay.
let's just we'll shine some more light over here. We'll do,
We have this comment
we'll
right
do it
now
like stadium style,
on your
like-
screen. Jim Dickman chiming in. I don't think it's an age question, Jim says, but a responsibility question. You're right. Case by case scenario, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Jim says, I won't allow my son to be left home alone until he shows that he can handle it. And that's really the answer. There's not a
Perfect.
number. It's a proof that you can be responsible
Yep.
enough to handle
Our
that
friend
situation.
Jeff Lucas says time away and communication procedures is critical for every decision. And I think there's a good point there as well. You know, you equip your kids to be able to handle this. They've got emergency numbers. They know their full name and address and phone number, and there's this checklist that you ought to have.
I
set
still
for them, a
remember our
safety
house
checklist.
phone number from
So do I.
7 years old.
Actually,
Yeah, me too.
Isn't that
My
nuts?
mom still has that number today from 30 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Comment on the screen. Our director, Byron Minger, showing us this one from Tanya Haywood. She says, kids are so different, so it depends on them, but our daughter, Tanya says, is almost 12, and she's really responsible, so she gets left home alone if I'm just running to the store. But she says that's really it for now. She's not going to leave her home alone, I guess, for hours on end. But a trip to the store, she feels for her daughter, that's fine. And Celeste, our executive producer, who you saw here on the screen a moment ago, giving me her phone to share some of these comments today because these are really good. Viewer Christy chimed in on our Facebook page to say, I think it greatly depends on the maturity level of the children as well as the ability of the parents to prepare the child to be independent and self-reliant. Jennifer, right after that, says she and her ex-husband would go round and round on this issue all the time. She says that she thinks the children need to be at least 12, if not older. Maturity needs to be there, and also, is the child comfortable being left alone? Well, I feel that's absolutely true, right? If my kids ever said, Dad, don't leave me home
no.
alone, I wouldn't
And
say
they didn't say that in your
tough.
scenario when you went
No,
into the.
they were
Hey,
actually excited about it.
Some comments about your scenario there where you
Thank
left
you.
the kids, your boys in the car for a few minutes. Ginny says people have watched their kids drive away in a carjacking. So Ginny is concerned about the carjacking.
Well, that'll leave a.
So there's that. And
That'll
then on
leave
the
a
other
mark
end of
on
the
your memory.
fact.
I feel bad now, Ginny.
yeah.
Well, Angela's got your back. She says, oh, please, if the kids are responsible, it's okay. I asked my 11-year-old daughter her choice to stay in the car while I run into the store quickly. Drew, the next thing you will tell us is your sons are free range, allowed to play outside by themselves, go bowling by themselves,
So I guess
etc.
I think Tracy has my side there with that comment. She's
Yeah.
being a little facetious. Our kids are super responsible, and you either have them or you don't. And in some ways, they're not responsible, and they're not very mature. In other ways, they are. I was telling Brenda about the first time I knew they were going to get home before I would get home. Like they were coming home from school, I was coming home from work, and I knew they were going to beat me. And I was nervous because they're going to be home alone for how long? At least 10 or 15 minutes, and they were probably only 10 at the time. Mm-hmm. So they know how to get into the house if no one's there, and they do. And I start calling the phone, at the time I think they're going to be there. It was like the 5th time I called, someone did answer, it was them. Hi, Dad. I said, I'm not there. We know. I said, when did you get home? We just walked in the door. What are you doing? Well, we're going to do our homework.
Don't do anything.
I
Sit
said,
down
"You're
on the
gonna do your
couch and wait
homework?"
till I get home.
Well, no, they were like, I'm going to do your homework. I said, that's great. I'll be there in 15 minutes. Sure enough, 15 minutes I showed up. They were both sitting there doing their homework at the kitchen table.
And they didn't mean by lighting it on fire.
No,
was it?
they
There's
actually
no
were
fire.
doing math homework on their own. Thank you,
That's
boys.
awesome. Good boys. Jody Hunt says 12.
Okay.
Nice and simple, 12.
My sister was the town babysitter at 12. I remember that. And I also remember my sister at 12. At the time, she seemed a lot older than that to me. And I think she really was. For her age, just very mature 12-year-old. For whatever reason, families in the neighborhood trusted her to watch, their younger kids. When I was 12, there was no way someone should have hired me to be a babysitter. I could barely take care of myself,
That's for
right?
sure.
But it all, again, depends on the child.
Yep.
We're doing some math in our head.
Well, I'm just trying to. I'm trying to think of how old I was when I can remember being left home alone for any length of time
Yeah.
for the first time, and I actually at this moment I can't quite.
I was
think of
youngest
that.
of 3, so I had older siblings taking care of me.
You always had someone older than you looking out for you.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know how old Jacqueline is, but she commented on our KHW TV Facebook page saying that today's kids are not as resilient as kids from her childhood. She says they would latchkey, or she was a latchkey kid. I was one of those too, by the way. She was a latchkey kid. She says we cooked, we cleaned, we took full care of the laundry. My mother traveled for work, so we had a family friend check in on us now and again. But literally, we did things to take care of the house when we were younger, and we took care of our younger siblings, sometimes for a week at a time.
Wow.
Wow.
Responsibility
That's
early
that's
there.
the far end of the spectrum, I would
Sure.
say.
Yeah.
But I remember that, at one point my mom had to take a job that it was a night shift, 2:30 to 10:30, and it was like, hey kids, this year, when you come home from school, I'm not going to be here.
Yeah.
And my sister, again, like I said, 4 years older than me, but when she was in high school, I would get home before she was. I was in 2nd grade, coming home by myself. What's that, 8?
Wow.
And I never thought it was weird.
Yeah.
I just thought, this is the way it is.
So, yeah, it is. Well, working parents. I mean, both my parents were working, and we were home alone a lot. So
Right.
the older sibling, my parents would come home, hide everything, quick, the party's over. Run. No, just kidding.
But even then, even having gone through that, I still was not ready to let my boys at 8 stay home by themselves.
Right,
Just if you can avoid it, you try to.
Yeah,
I think.
when are you as a parent ready? Like,
Right.
there's the okay. I think
Are
they're
they
ready.
Yeah.
But when are you actually ready to? 25.
Barb has a similar story. Barb Estes, I've
Yeah.
seen her name in our feeds a lot of times. So Barb, if you're watching right now live in the stream, good morning. I know you left this comment about 25 minutes ago. Barb says, when my daughter was 10, I worked night shift. She says her dad left the house at 5:30 for his work, so she was alone for 2.5 hours. She got herself up, she got herself dressed for school, she got her own breakfast. She would go 4 houses down to her best friend's house, and they would walk across the street to school together. She did have emergency contact information if she did need help. But in Barb's case, she said her daughter, at the age of 10, was responsible enough to handle being home alone and to get herself to school on time.
Wow, that's impressive.
I saw you scouring the feed there. I thought you were going to bring us
There's
something.
nothing new. I don't know what.
Okay.
I don't know. My comments.
Sometimes
are
you have
coming in. I'm
to
kinda surprised.
refresh it. You
I
have to
know, I'm trying.
hit that deal with your thumb.
Look at that. Nothing. I don't know why. Maybe mine's not working. We're at 57% saying 10 to 12 years old and 43% 13 plus
That's
at
pretty
this
much
point.
stable at that point.
I did a little research actually. This is from findlaw.com, which is kind of a legal, directory for attorneys. It says 7 and under should not be left alone for any period of time. It says these are general guidelines. 8 to 10 years old should not be left alone for more than an hour and a half and only during daylight and early evening hours. That seems a little young. 11 to 12 may be left alone for up to 3 hours, but not late night or in circumstances requiring inappropriate responsibility. 13 to 15 may be left unsupervised, but not overnight. 16 to 17, they talk about being, overnight, going to have the sleepovers and stuff like that. Those are general rules. And there are some states that have rules about this that say a kid can't be left alone. In Illinois, it's age 14. There are actual laws.
Can't be left alone,
can't
period,
be
or
left alone,
overnight, or
period.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's what I believe is the case, but very few, just a few states actually have laws around this. I don't think we're one of them. So.
We're going to wrap up this edition of Sunrise Extra, but I often think sometimes. Do you remember Gert Boyle, obviously the
Gert.
founder of Columbia, the
She's
one
tough mother.
one tough mother behind Columbia Sportswear. We had that story a few years back, maybe it's been 10 years ago
man.
now, where she came home, middle of the day, someone was in her house, she was on the wrong end of a break-in, and they tried to keep her pinned down.
It was a huge traumatic event, yeah, for sure.
And I'm thinking to myself, okay, Gert was in her 80s, so it's like the other end of the spectrum. It's never completely safe. You're listening to those guidelines. I'm thinking, what does 90 minutes have to do with it? Why is it
know.
okay to leave them home for 90 minutes, but not 2
Yeah, I know
hours
about
when they're
that.
8
Yeah,
to 10
'cause-
years old?
Yep.
The fact of the matter is, there's always going to be a risk involved.
Yep.
But you made a good point, which I'm still coming to grips with, and you will have to at some point here, probably 7 or 8 years down the line. It's like at some point you have to let go a little bit.
You got to let go.
My
Yeah.
mom, I noticed, still not able to let go all the way. And I'm 45.
Neither's mine.
Mine either. Not completely. No, my mom calls me a lot.
Yeah, please
I
wear
love
your
you, Mom.
seatbelt tomorrow. Yeah. And I was like, got it, Mom. Wear the seatbelt
You got
tomorrow.
to let the birds fly, though. Got to let them fly.
Okay.
Got to let the kids go a little bit, and they'll find their boundaries.
Fly, boys, fly. Thank you for watching Sunrise Extra. We'll be
great
back
weekend.
Monday morning. This is a handy case, Celeste, with your ID.